Tavi, descendant of the famous Mazzy Fentan, is a stalwart halfling who has pledged her life to the goddess Arvarine and all that is good in the world. Her devotion has not wavered after being taken by the Nautiloid and is on a journey of self-discovery. So this build is based off Mazzy from Baldur's Gate 2, so it's probably worth just having a look at her because maybe not all of you know who Mazzy is. So she was a potential companion and she is a female halfling. It says class fighter. It's a bit more complicated than that. We're going to scroll down first because in 2nd edition, which Baldur's Gate 2 is based off, halflings cannot actually become paladins, and she is pretty much through and through a paladin. And so she isn't just a usual fighter. She gets a lay on hands ability, some healing. She gets haste, strength, which increases her strength, and invoke courage, which stops people from being frightened. And in terms of her weapons, proficiencies work very differently in 2nd edition. She's got a single pip in a short sword, which means she could use short swords without any penalties. And shortbow, it's got 5 pips as it were. She was a grand master of shortbows, which meant she could rattle off 2.5 or 3 attacks per round, which is, yeah, very different to how things work now in 5th edition. And lastly, her stats are way higher than what we can even possibly achieve in Baldur's Gate 3. And this is, again, because stats works differently in 2nd edition. Her total score was 86. I think eventually I ended up with a total score of like 76, but generally gone with a high dexterity, low intelligence, wisdom and charisma middling. I had to reduce the strength, we'll get to that, and constitution is kind of just okay. So I'm using Withers to respec. I'm going to give her 2 levels in fighter, mostly for action surge, so she can have some rounds where she is firing off her short bow very, very often. So for the fighting style, I am going to take archery. As for her abilities, dexterity is the highest, with constitution and charisma kind of the 2nd highest, and wisdom and strength following, with intelligence the lowest. It's just impossible to follow the stats from Baldur's Gate 2. As for her skills, I've gone with survival because she did a lot of trekking during the game in Baldur's Gate 2, and athletics because she's still a fighter. She still needs to be able to grapple and shove, not that we can grapple in Baldur's Gate 3, sadly. 2 levels in fighter for the action surge. And then all the other levels are going to be in Paladin. Let's find Paladin here. Oath of Devotion. She is the protector of the weak. She is all for the good in the world. This means she gets Holy Rebuke, which I never use, to be honest. As for the fighting style, we could go for either defense or dueling. To try and increase the damage from short swords, I'm going to go with dueling. We then get Sacred Weapon, which we can put onto our bow, which will be nice. We get Divine Health, we get an extra spell slot. We get another Lay on Hands charge. Now, unfortunately, with only 2 levels in Fighter and 10 levels in Paladin, we're going to be a little bit starved for feats. First one, I'm going to take a Sharpshooter, which is slightly offset by the Archery fighting style. Having High Ground or Bless or any other way to increase attack rolls will certainly help. Level 5 gives us a level 2 slots and a 2nd attack, extra attack. Level 6 gives the Aura of Protection. It says a +0 bonus down here, but really it will be +2 because it's based off the Charisma modifier. So having a high Charisma as a Paladin is so important. Unfortunately, because I need lots of high ability scores, I'm not going to be able to do that. The Oath of Devotion gains Aura of Devotion. So you and your allies, nearby allies, cannot be charmed. At level 8, we get our 2nd and final feat. I feel like I really have to up the dexterity here, just to make sure that we can actually hit things. I don't mind having a main attacking stat at 18, but I really don't want to keep it at 16 for a whole game. At level 9, we get access to the level 3 spells. I'll talk about the spells later. And finally, at level 10, and the reason I want to take her to level 10 really, is we get the Aura of Courage, which really is kind of analogous to the Invoke Courage ability from Baldur's Gate 2. And this means you and any nearby allies cannot be frightened, which is cool. So let's talk about spells. So she's a paladin. I know she has Lay on Hands, but Cure Wounds is always nice to have as well. Definitely Bless. Definitely Heroism. She's a brave halfling. It would be unfitting to not take that. I think Divine Favor, she's favored by the gods. And Commands, just because Command is such a great spell, to be honest. Aid, yes. Branding Smite is almost essential because she won't be able to smite with a ranged weapon, apart from using Branding Smite, which has a ranged version built into it. It is Mantle, Warden of Vitality if she needs to help with healing. In fact, we can take so many spells here because paladins don't get a huge number of spells to choose from in the game. Maybe Revivify in case you don't have a cleric in your party, although I already have 2 here. And maybe Elemental Weapon. We're never going to use most of these spells. In fact, I'm going to take out Elemental Weapon. Sorry, I've already got Magic Weapon, a Concentration spell for my weapon, and stick in Thunderous Smite. Now to her items. And I've managed to pick items that you can get mostly in Act 2 or earlier. The Flawed Helldusk Helm comes from Dammon in the Last Light Inn. The reason I've taken this helmet is because halflings got bonuses to saving throws against certain types of saving throw, and the nearest way I can replicate that is with the Flawed Helldusk Helm, which gives a +2 bonus for saving throws against spells and a +1 for Constitution. Simple Cloak of Protection, you can just buy this from the Last Light Inn, just increases her armor class. The Armor of Devotion comes from Roa Moonglow in Moonrise Towers, and you can just go to Moonrise Towers and walk in there and buy this from her. It's fairly expensive. It is heavy armor, so unfortunately the decent dexterity we've got doesn't benefit from this, but I mean it's Armor of Devotion. Eternal Devotion, you can recite your oath and regain 1 channel oath charge. Armor class 18, decent enough. Gloves of Archery, since she's going to be using her shortbow a lot, you gain proficiency with longbows and shortbows. She doesn't need that. In addition, your ranged weapon attacks deal an additional 2 damage. It's not a huge amount, but it really kind of plays into the fact she is a shortbow user. You can buy these from Grat the Trader in the Goblin Camp, so very early in Act 1. Boots of Speed, this is just to let her get around, and she doesn't have a huge number of uses for her bonus action. She is a halfling, so her movement speed is a bit lower. These come from the Myconid colony. Silver Pendant, Guidance. This comes from just outside the Druid Grove, very, very early on in the game. And I feel like Arverine does guide her. She is like a devout paladin. If she wasn't a paladin, I'm sure she would be a cleric, but she's not a cleric, so she doesn't get guidance, but she's worthy enough for guidance. Sunwalker's Gift, we can buy this from the Myconid colony, gives her dark vision because halflings don't get it, and this will help her not have disadvantage, assuming there isn't any light around in dark areas. Precious Ring, kind of linking up with the boots just to make sure she can get around the battlefield so she isn't too slow. And this comes from Crusher in the Goblin Camp again. Knife of the Undermountain King. Now, although it says knife, it is actually a short sword. I don't envisage actually using this very often. I will mostly be using the shortbow. But what does it do? This is a well-known item, I think. This reduces the number you need for a critical hit. So for her, from a 20 to a 19. And if we attack someone who is lightly or heavily obscured, we have advantage with this blade. So it wouldn't give her advantage from her shortbow, sadly. This can be bought from the Githyanki Crush, just from the trader in there. The Shield of Devotion, mostly just going for it because it says Devotion. We get 1 extra level 1 spell slot, which is nice. Means she can Shield Bash, and she can give out aid to herself. This isn't the proper aid spell where it applies it in an area of effect. This is just for herself, but she gets some extra hit points. And lastly, her bow, Dark Fire Shortbow, which can be bought in the Last Light Inn, very early on in Act 2. Gives her the ability to have haste, just like she had haste in Baldur's Gate 2. Also, just as a slight bonus here, she gets resistance to fire damage and cold damage. So I've just realized earlier I didn't say where the Shield of Devotion comes from. This also can be bought at the Last Light Inn as soon as you get there. All of these items can be gained from almost the very beginning of Act 2 or earlier. I do have some other items kind of prepared that I would potentially give her, especially in the later acts. Or the helmet, maybe the Holy Lance Helm. This can come from a chest at the Githyanki Crush. Well, I suppose it's at the temple really, not the Crush itself. So creatures who miss their attack rolls against the wearer have to make a dexterity saving throw or take 1d4 radiant damage. This build is supposed to be thematic. This isn't necessarily the strongest helmet out there, but kind of fits with her theme. Very late in the game, Helm of Baldurin. This is just a great helmet for anyone who is proficient in medium armor. You get some heals, you get bonuses to armor class and saving throws, can't be stunned, can't have critical hits land against you. Just an all-round amazing helmet. Maybe if you're going to be using the short sword instead of the bow, we go with the Gloves of the Growling Underdog, which come from the Goblin Camp. Yet again, this one is actually from very early in the game. One short sword you might meet before the Knife of the Undermountain King is a short sword of First Blood. This comes from the Underdark again, from the body of a dead gnome. And if you hit an enemy that has still got all of its hit points, you do an additional 1d8 damage. Instead of the Dark Fire Shortbow, and I'm reluctant to give this up because of the haste, but if you did give it up, the Bow of the Banshee, which can come from Corsair Greymon, the Duergar, is just so good. If you do inflict frightened on an enemy, you then get a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and damage against that frightened creature. You can do loads of damage with this. And then later in the game, much later in the game, This can be bought from Enthal Danthalon in Rivington, in Danthalon's Dancing Axe, and Worms Crossing, not Rivington, sorry, in Worms Crossing. I feel this is a bit too mean towards other short races. I don't think Mazzy would want to use this. Attacking gnomes or dwarves with the weapon receives a 1d4 bonus to attack and damage rolls. Also, late in Act 3, there aren't too many gnomes and dwarves left to fight anyway. But more importantly, when this weapon lands a critical hit, it also slows the target creature. That's so good. Later on in Act 3, after a certain quest, I don't want to give any spoilers here, I suppose, you can get this amulet, which gives you advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. Again, trying to replicate the bonuses halflings got in 2nd edition to some saving throws. This could fit with her theme as well, the Ring of Truthfulness. You gain advantage on insight checks. I think as a strong paladin, she will know whether people are lying to her or not. And this can be found in the windmill in Rivington, in the basement from the windmill there. And lastly, Mantle of the Holy Warrior. I think she very much is a holy warrior. This comes from the Stormshore Tabernacle in Baldur's Gate itself, just past the Basilisk Gate. And what does this do? Well, this gives her the ability to cast Crusader's Mantle. She can get it as a spell, but this is just, kind of free once per short rest. I'd rather use this than a level 3 spell slot, in all honesty. So I found myself in a fight in a lovely park in Baldur's Gate. And it's her first turn. It's not the first turn of the combat. In fact, she's gone almost last. Shadowheart has cast Bless, and Taverman has cast Crusader's Mantle, so she will be getting some bonuses to her attack rolls already. On her first turn, what she can do is cast Haste. Not only does that give her an extra action, but her armor class goes up by 2, so it's 23 now, not to be sniffed at. Something else she could do, and I haven't done so far, is drink an elixir. I think if she didn't already have Bless, an elixir of heroism would suit her perfectly. Also, an elixir of maybe Cloud or Heal Giant Strength would be good to kind of replicate the strength ability she had in Baldur's Gate 2. I'm going to give her a diluted oil of sharpness to get a +1 bonus. So now 95% chance to hit with Sharpshooter, presumably because the armor class is very low, yeah. Right, this should be quite easy. Whoa, so nearly there. We can and also should use arrows. I don't know if this arrow of many targets is going to get anyone else, but oh yeah, a bit too far away. And then I think if I've used haste, this would be good to try and get all of these attacks out using a shortbow. Yeah, let's try another one of these. These guys have got unstoppable though, sadly. Bit of bounces between them, and maybe we want to fire out an acid arrow. So the thing is, she's never going to do the most damage because we're limiting her to shortbows, and not many shortbows have huge amounts of damage on them. Thankfully, her save should be pretty high. She's got a reroll because she rolled a 1. There's that halfling luck coming into play. Aura Protection, Bless, Wisdom modifier for a total of 26. This fight isn't particularly hard. The Flaming Fists do come along. They are going to help us out. Even Spark is going to help us out. So her general course of action will be shoot, and perhaps shoot with a special arrow.
No time for mercy.
We're getting fairly decent shots, but one of the problems also is we're only getting 2 attacks per turn. But we're hasted, so it's all good. Now in honor mode, I'd only get 1 extra attack here rather than the 2 that are about to come. Now she can't quite reach any of the other targets, so she will use her Boots of Speed. The kills, that will get her some extra movement speed. She can still go quite a long way. 130 feet. Really nothing to be sniffed at. Just out of range. Don't know if it will... Oh, there we are. Perfect. Oh, hit. Critical hit. Sadly unstoppable. Can't do anything about that. Maybe I want to set them off. No, maybe I want to create some ice. Let's create some ice instead. Yeah, we're trying to use consumables to supplement the damage. And she could use some poison. I'm not going to anymore because the fight's nearly over. Drought poison is very good. Can put people to sleep. It's not guaranteed, but just a possibility. There we are. She does a solid 90, well, usually 20 and above damage for each attack, which is nice. Like I said, it's, she's probably never going to be the highest damage dealer out there. And next time I'll try and use Branding Smite. If there's anyone still alive, anyway. Go, Sparky! Alright, we'll move to a slightly more difficult fight. Not necessarily overly difficult either. But it has a slight connection to Baldur's Gate 2 in one small way. So in Baldur's Gate 2, You first come across Mazzy after she's been captured, after she was trying to find some werewolves. And here we have some werewolves. Now I know there's going to be a fight here, so I'm actually going to prepare a tiny bit. The first thing I'm going to do is cast Sacred Weapon onto her bow. What this does, her charisma modifier is a +2, is added to attack rolls made with the weapon. Becomes magical and emits light. Doesn't really matter so much here. I'm not going to concentrate on haste this time because I maybe want to concentrate on one of the other spells that we've got. We've got quite a few concentration spells to make sure we don't die. I'm going to put up Warden of Vitality. Only paladins and bards from the magical secrets can take this. 2d6 healing. It's probably not going to save us, but Shadow Heart's actually slightly hurt. Lasts for 10 turns and does not, and I love this, does not require concentration. And again, since I know I'm about to fight, let's just stick up Bless one more time. Alright. And once again, Crusader's Mantle. Oops, I gave him the cloak. Perhaps I should have done that, never mind. So we're not going too late. Did quite well on the initiative this time around. She's going to hunt down the werewolves first because that's just what she does. Maybe I want to use a branding smite. Yeah. Anyway, get some of that smiting out. We can't use the normal smite with a ranged attack as I mentioned earlier. Again, a little bit sad. And on the first turn, let's see if we can do as much damage as we can to the single werewolf. I think I've turned off Sharpshooter, sadly. That was a big mistake. Hopefully this does enough damage. Yeah, there we are. Right, one werewolf down. Mazzy was going to take care of the little guys, but over the top. That'll speed things along. So nobody's been hurt in this round, but Shadowheart's still missing a single hit point. So let's restore that. So far I've shown off the ranged weapons, but she is a short sword user also. And so we can start piling out on the smites. Just 2 attacks per turn though. So this turn she's going to take the Elixir of Cloud Giant Strength to replicate the strength ability she had in Baldur's Gate 2. Alright, it's a bit over the top for Duva here, so let's go after Bloodfang. No, Werewolf first. Garrus, that's better. Gone. So it looks like Taverman needs a bit of healing. I'm going to go with the short sword again because this werewolf is prone. Get advantage. You don't need to smite every single attack. Oh, look at that. Perfect. If there was another round of combat, she might actually have moved back and then started shooting White Mist. But we should be able to deal with White Mist here. Well, I left White Mist alive just so I can do this. Oh, not that. So I can do this. Easy peasy. Is she the strongest archer in the world? No, she's not. We can't replicate getting 3-4 attacks out every single turn in Baldur's Gate 3. We can try our best with having haste, which gets us up to 4 in tactician and below. Action surge can help out. It's not as consistent as having 5 pips in a weapon in 2nd edition where you have Grand Mastery, but we've done our best. Try my best to replicate her. Let me know what changes you would make to make this more Tavi-like, I suppose you could say. Thank you very much for watching to all the members of my channel, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.